Hi, my name is Holly Nancy Baglio. Holy bag of lions. Leave off the N as we don't want any nagging Nancys. Nowadays, you call them Karens because they're caring about things that are not their business. Back when I was growing up, we called them Nancys. That joke that I just made up only took me 2 videos to get right. This is part 2 of the Monastery. Where I left off in part 1 was I was in the room to the left side of the door. They had taken part of the group of kids, into a room off to the right-hand side of the front door. And in the room that I was in with the other portion of kids, the adults started doing drugs, getting naked, and doing different chants and rituals and playing weird music. There was a programmer or handler by the name of Mike, M-I-K-E, Mike, and I'm being very specific. He took me away from all the other children, and he brought me outside. Near the monastery is a lake, and there was a boathouse, and he had brought me down around that area, and I was a forced, unwilling candidate. I was forced to do these things. It was against my will. And I was told as a young kid between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, throughout the whole 30 years of my life, that if I did not do what they told me to do, they would terminate me. And as a young child, as a very young child, I believed them. I believe that Mike brought me there to the monastery on several occasions. It was not just one time, but several occasions. Mike had forced me to decorate a cage. I believe it was a cage. Mike drove a 4-door car, which I believe was blue, but he also drove a truck. It seemed that Mike was the one responsible for obtaining us children and bringing us to the monastery. Mike told me to decorate a cage, make it look like a comfortable area, decorate it. Mike tricked a boy and his dog. And one night at the monastery, Mike had brought me down to the lake and he yelled at me, "Go to my truck, get the rope, get this, get that, get these things I need." And I went to his truck, I got the rope and the things he requested, and I brought it back. And he was standing over the boy and dog. He tied them up. He put them in that cage. And then he put that cage into the lake. And he left the cage in the lake. When it was time for him to return me back home, again, I was between the ages of 5, 6, 7, 8. When it was time to return me home, I kept looking over my shoulder and looking over my shoulder and looking back at the lake and looking back. And Mike yelled at me. He said, "Forget about the boy, forget about the dog, get in the car. Forget about them." And he drove me back home. But one night, that did not set well with me. The night that it did not set well for me will be part 3. When I was a little kid, Mike, the programmer, had been a part of my life. I believe he had some sort of connection with my mother. That was the impression as a little child of 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. That is the impression that I was left with, was somehow that Mike, this programmer, had some sort of contact with my mother. Whether he lied to her, which most likely he did, and presented himself to be a boyfriend or a date, being the disguise, but really underneath, he was coming after me, to traffic me. But to get to me, they needed someone's permission. My mother never raised me. My mother dropped me on her parents, and Grandma and Papa raised me. Grandma and Papa are my mom and dad. They took care of me. No, my Gabri family and my Baglio family, as well as my stepdad's family, had no part in these projects. They did not put me through these projects. They did not sell me through these projects. They themselves did not abuse me. I need to make this very clear. Again, I'm giving you my testimony in short, little pieces. The abuse I endured was at the hands of our government and military, USA, Canada, and UK's. Our US government did this to me, not my family. I did not come up with this story of the deep underground military bases as a cover for my family abusing me. My family and families never abused me. My grandfather, who raised me, was forced to be a part of these projects because he was in World War II in the Navy on a minesweeper ship. That's another video. I think this programmer, now this is solely speculation, I think this programmer tricked my mother to make her think she was going on a date. But really, he was trying to get access to me because she was an absent mother. She kept me away from my real father my entire life. When I was 18, I met him. I reached out to him myself. This event at the monastery stuck with me a lifetime. In 2014, when I woke up with a calling upon my head, as well as a flash flood of memories from deep underground military bases and above ground government facilities, because they created me. They used me as a super soldier. And I've been through the gamut of MK Ultra projects stemming from Operation Paperclip at the end of World War II. But back in 2014, when I woke up to all of this and the hypnotism wore off and the programming broke down, I can tell you how I broke the programming down. All praise to Yahuwah for Yahusha. The memories of the monastery was the very first confession that came out of my mouth. I started to go to Mountaintop Church. And when I went to Mountaintop Church in 2014 and 2015, they had held a conference where Russ Dizdar, L.A. Marzulli, and Douglas Hem, John Ben John, and Mr. Cohen from over in Israel had come to Mountaintop Church to do a conference for 5 days in 2015. And for a little while, I stayed going to Mountaintop Church. But this was the very first confession that I ever gave publicly and to Yahuwah HaMashiach, is my story about the monastery. Stay tuned for part 3.